Genesis chapter 10. These are the descendants of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, to whom sons were born after the flood. The descendants of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The descendants of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The descendants of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, the Kittim, and the Rodanim. These are the descendants of Japheth, and from them sprang the maritime nations, and in their respective lands, each with its own language, by their clans within the nations. The descendants of Ham: Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush: Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sebtika. The descendants of Ramah: Sheba and Dedan. Cush became the father of Nimrod, who was the first potentate on earth. He was a mighty hunter by the grace of the Lord. Hence the saying, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter by the grace of the Lord. The chief cities of his kingdom were Babylon, Erech, and Akkad, all of them in the land of Shinar. And from that land he went forth to Ashur, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, and Calah, as well as Rezin, between Nineveh and Calah, the latter being the principal city. Mizraim became the father of Ludim, the Ananim, the Lehabim, the Naphtuhim, the Pathrusim, the Casluhim, and the Caphtorim, from whom the Philistines sprang. Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of Heth, also the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites spread out, so that the Canaanite borders extended from Sidon all the way to Gerar, near Gaza, and all the way to Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, near Lasha. These are the descendants of Ham, according to their clans and languages, by their lands and nations. To Shem also, Japheth's oldest brother and the ancestor of all children of Eber, sons were born. The descendants of Shem: Elam, Ashur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram, Uz, Hol, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad became the father of Shelah, and Shelah became the father of Eber. To Eber 2 sons were born. The name of the first was Peleg, for in his time the world was divided, and the name of his brother was Joktan. Joktan became the father of Almodad, Sheleph, and Harzamaveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzha, Dikla, Obol, Ibamael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All of these became the descendants of Joktan. Their settlements extended all the way to Sephar, the eastern hill country. These are the descendants of Shem according to their clans and languages, by their lands and nations. These are the groupings of Noah's son, according to their origins and by their nations. From these the other nations of the earth branched out after the flood. Genesis chapter 11. The whole world spoke the same language, using the same words. While men were migrating in the east, they came upon a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us mold bricks and harden them with fire." They used bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower in its top in the sky, and make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered all over the earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men had built. Then the Lord said, "If now, while they are one people, all speaking the same language, and have started doing this, nothing will later stop them from doing whatever they presume to do. Let us then go down and there confuse their language, so that one will not understand what another says." Thus the Lord scattered them from all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the speech of all the world. It was from that place that he scattered them all over the earth. This is the record of the descendants of Shem, When Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arpachshad, 2 years after the flood. Shem lived 500 years after the birth of Arpachshad and had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. Arpachshad lived 403 years after the birth of Shelah and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber. Shelah lived 403 years after the birth of Eber, and he had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father of Peleg. Eber lived 430 years after the birth of Peleg, and he had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Reu. Peleg lived 209 years after the birth of Reu, and he had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he became the father of Serug. Reu lived 207 years after the birth of Serug, and he had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. Serug lived 200 years after the birth of Nahor, and he had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. Nahor lived 119 years after the birth of Terah, and he had other sons and daughters. When Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. This is the record of the descendants of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran became the father of Lot. Haran died before his father Terah in his native land in Ur of the Chaldeans. Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Sarai was barren. She had no child. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and brought them out of Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. But when they reached Haran, they settled there. The time of Terah was 205 years. Then Terah died in Haran.